Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back, guys. We are still talking about the Mona Lisa. And if you haven't listened to the other parts of this, go back and listen to the last Claudine episodes, because we have so much information about Mona Lisa. It's multi-part, and Claudine's going to continue that journey with us today.
And it's going to go, this is part 4, but it's going to go a few more, except for we're just going to end her at part 4 for now. Because
now
you might want a break.
I don't know. It's pretty interesting.
And I still am doing research on some other stuff because I'm going so deep into her. So I just want to do it the right way. And so some of them I need to do more research on. So we'll give you a little break and go to another one. But I did this. I actually moved this up. This was going to be more like episode 6. But because of something that just happened 1 week ago to the Mona Lisa, I decided to move this one up a little bit to give you some more insight on what happened. But we'll start out first about when she actually left. So she left, as we know, because of her theft in 1913. She took a little trip back to Italy, where she was born. And then she came back to the Louvre on January 4th, 1914. But then she would leave France again a few times.
Ooh, where was she going?
Well, the first time that she left after 1914 was all due to a very glamorous and probably one of the best and amazing first ladies of the United States. So President John F. Kennedy and his wife Jackie visited Paris on May 31st, 1961 for 3 days. The darling of American politics didn't really impress Charles de Gaulle, but the French heritage of the beautiful First Lady, Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy, did. Because she spoke fluently in French to de Gaulle, he was powerless under influence, as was the culture minister at the time, Andre Malraux, who was the very first cultural minister and probably one of the best ones France has ever had. They had a very lavish state dinner on June 1st in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles on a 220-foot-long table that was set using the Napoleon's silver and the blue Marly china. Andre Malraux also fell under her charm and was invited the following May of 1962 for a state dinner in Washington, D.C. That trip to Paris is the one where JFK very famously said, I was there joining my wife on her tour of France.
I love that. That's so crazy.
She was such a big deal. But if you watch The Crown, which I recently was rewatching it again, and the scene of her coming to England, they made it so that it was like, Jack was so jealous and upset with her because she was this big hit. But who knows if that was actually what happened.
It is dramatized.
It is dramatized. But I mean, I love JFK and, of course, Jackie. So it was at the dinner on May 11th, 1962, that she was sitting next to Andre Malraux and talked over a plan to maybe send the Mona Lisa to America. And back in France, the idea did not go over so well. As the date became closer, the citizens actually rioted in the streets because, of course, they protest anything here. But that's a good one. They rioted in the streets, and the daily conversation over a cafe was all about the Mona Lisa and the fact that she would leave France to go to the United States.
So did they get her?
They did. So on December 14th, 1962, 49 years and a day to the moment she was discovered after she was abducted by Perugio, it was time for her to leave for the United States. She was packed away in a very specially designed, airtight, temperature-controlled case that was waterproof. She was put on board the SS France to New York under very heavy security. This special case stored the painting and the frame separately. And as she floated across the ocean, only a handful of people knew that she was even on the boat. When it arrived and it was just became this huge international news that she was in the United States, the people that were on that same ship they were like, we didn't even know that we were on there. She had her very own stateroom, heavy security, because of course this is after she's stolen, so they're not taking any chances. She arrived 5 days later on December 19th. The federal and local police and military awaited her to arrive in New York, and then they drove her straight to Washington, D.C., to the National Gallery, where she was tucked away for 3 weeks in a room while the area she was going to be presented on was prepared. On January 8th, 1963, to coincide with the opening of the 88th session of Congress, the doors opened. And for the first and only time in American history, the President of the United States opened an art exhibit with an official speech alongside the President of France.
That's so cool. I love the National Gallery.
Yeah. Did you go there recently?
Yeah, I've been there on this trip. Whenever I visit my family, I always head to the mall because there's so many great free museums.
Oh yeah, everything there is free. When I was there in March for a week to finish up all of my paperwork, I was like, well, I'll go to DC because I could go to the museums. And I went to the National Gallery. And of course, the area I wanted to see where they had the French paintings was closed.
Well, that's just because you're moving to France. You can see it all in person.
I know, but I was excited to see a few things that they had in the collection. But I was like, of course, that area is closed. So from January 9th to February 3rd, people lined up for hours for a glimpse of the Mona Lisa. Security was very tight because it was basically like this had to be controlled. This was the first and only time that we know the value of the insurance on the Mona Lisa because they do not discuss that. But she was valued at the time for $100 million, which today would be the equivalent of almost $900 million.
Wow, that's insane.
And I'm sure she's insured for. I mean, she's basically priceless. I mean, if she was stolen again, you couldn't even, like, what kind of a price tag would you put on there? But I did kind of do some figuring to do that, and I'll tell you about that a little later. But of what she's worth to the Louvre now. But she was surrounded by 2 armed Marines at all times, and a slew of undercover agents were in the crowd. A woman named Madeline Hours traveled from the Louvre every step of the way with the Mona Lisa. She was constantly checking the conditions that she was exposed in because she had to be, everything has to be done for the temperature and humidity of her because she is painted on wood. And in a future episode, I'll go into that. And there's some actual really fascinating information. But as the gallery was filled up with people, the temperature visibly, like you could feel it in the room getting warmer. It rose 10 degrees over what it was. And as Madeline moved towards the painting to check the temperature on it, she moved too quickly. And the Marine that was on guard to stop her punched her in the throat.
Oh no. Oh my gosh, poor Madeline.
Yeah, she was okay after that, but I mean, I think that would give you quite the shock. But in the end, 518,000 people came to see her in DC, waiting over 2 hours out in the cold of winter in DC, which normally was very, very frigid. On February 4th, Lisa and Madeline, escorted by heavy security, drove their way to New York to be on display in the Met. On February 7th, the doors opened. In just 4 weeks, over 1 million people came. Those last 2 weeks, because the crowds were so intense, they kept it open 24 hours a day. But one night before it was open 24 hours a day, and I just read this today, and this is the first time I've ever seen this because nobody has known about this until the last few years. But while she was there overnight, the sprinkler system malfunctioned and she was pelted in her frame with water for hours.
What? That's
They haven't ever told anybody until 2 years ago that happened because she was okay. But at that point, her frame still wasn't this bulletproof, amazing frame that she gets to be in now. thankfully nothing happened to her because she's also, again, she's on wood. And if wood is wet for hours and hours on end, it would not be a good thing.
So, wow. I mean, it was already like France didn't want to hand her over, and then we just threw her in a bathtub.
But exactly, it's like great. I mean, and that's part of her history. There's another time where she was not in the greatest of conditions. Again, we'll tell you that story another time. Madeline Hours, though, was a pretty amazing lady. She was born August 5th, 1913 in Paris. She later became the director of the C2RMF, which is basically the top institute that's located in the Louvre and in the Denon wing underneath, basically below ground. They have that whole area. But she advanced the scientific studies of paintings and restoration. She's the one who basically invented the fact that they'd use X-rays on it and all of this like very scientific. And she created what is now, it's the number one place in the world that museums from all over the world send their pieces to be looked at, to be X-rayed, to be restored, everything. And she was the one who was the first director of that.
That's really cool. Go, Madeline.
Go Madeline. She died in 2005. I mean, she was born in 1913, so she had an amazing long life. And she even made TV shows about the scientific studies of paintings.
What a fascinating woman.
I know she's right on up there now in my list of favorite ladies. And maybe we'll have to do a whole episode about her. She's dead now, so we can't.
Yeah, let's talk about her.
Since you always say I only ever talk about dead people.
That's true.
Yeah, we did. One time we talked about that woman that was in the French Resistance. She was still alive then.
Basically close to not being alive.
She's not now. But one of these days I'll talk about somebody that's actually alive. But in April of 1974, Lisa left France again for the last time. This time she went to Tokyo under orders of President Pompidou in an act of diplomacy. The Japanese Prime Minister Tanaka gave France $300 million to promote the study of Japanese culture and language. So in return, Pompidou agreed to let the Mona Lisa leave the Louvre and travel to Tokyo, something Louvre officials were quite against. For her departure in 1974, she was placed in again in a state-of-the-art case, but this one had to be even better because when she came to France in 1516, she came on a donkey. When she left France in 1913 for Italy, she went on the train and she returned on a train. And then in 1962, she went in a boat, but this time she was going in an airplane. And with an airplane, you also have to deal with pressure. So she went into this case that Tokyo, the Japanese officials made for her, it was completely temperature and humidity controlled. And it also protected her from fire, water, and any other disaster that could happen. And so in 1962, as I said, she was traveled by sea. Now she was on her very first flight. Her traveling case was better than her permanent home in the Louvre. Everything about it was better than the way she was displayed in the Louvre, and it kind of embarrassed the French. So she was in Tokyo from April 17th to June 11th. The crowds were so large that they were only allowed to stop for 10 seconds and highly, highly controlled. She was such an sensation that they created a phone line for people to call. And she would say, "Hi, my name is Lisa, and I am known as La Gioconde." And people, that's all. They'd call this number hundreds of thousands of times a day just to listen to this person say that in Japanese.
That's really funny.
Yeah. On her return to France, though, and this is another thing that it's funny because when I tell you the country that it is, it'll make a little sense, but it is a little bit difficult to get the actual events that happened. But she was on her flight back to France, and her flight traveled over Russia. And the director of the Pushkin Museum, a woman named Irina Antonov, and she just died a few years ago as well. And she heard that the Spain painting was flying over Moscow, and she pleaded with the Russian Minister of Culture to see if they could get the plane to stop. So the Russian President Brezhnev had been to the Louvre and to France in 1971 and saw on a private meeting, he was taken to the Louvre to see the Mona Lisa. So he was keen to make this happen again. So as soon as the flight entered into Russian airspace, it was forced to land. And the French finally agreed that they could keep her under bulletproof glass, and heavy security. It was amidst of the Cold War in 1974, and the only thing that could really thaw the tension for a few weeks was the Mona Lisa. But there's very murky figures. It says that 300,000 people waited 7 to 8 hours a day for just a glimpse of her. But they also considered her and Western art, the government despised and said it was degenerate, just like Hitler said. But they were happy to force her down, keep her there, and make money off people coming to see her.
I love that. Degenerate art.
But it is hard to find. Like, I have searched for hours and I now have multiple books. And the info that we get about that time in Russia is like a little difficult to find.
Well, that's not really surprising.
I know yeah. I mean, I don't think now that, I would love to go to see the Hermitage Museum in Russia, but I don't think anytime's going to go do that.
Yeah.
After her vacation that she spent in Japan and Moscow, the French government created a law that banned her from ever leaving France again. So, with her living conditions were better on her flight, the Louvre officials had to make a change. And so in 1974, she was placed behind bulletproof glass in the Salon Carré, which is the same place that she was stolen from. She's moved many places within the Grand Gallery, the Salon Carré, and then finally moved to the Salle des États, which is where she is now. From 2001 to 2005, the Japanese came into play again with Nippon Television spending $6.2 million, the equivalent, to redo her space. Today, she is behind 2 sheets of bulletproof glass, triple laminated. She's in climate controlled and heavily monitored casing. Ultrasound equipment surrounds her, and the smallest issue can be discovered within seconds. Humidity being the biggest issue. 25 pounds of silica gel keeps her at a perfect 55 degrees Fahrenheit and at 50% humidity at all times in the frame. The wall she's placed in that was added in 2005 is concrete in case anyone wants to drive a truck into her. But it is all completely secure because she is on wood and there's already a crack in her from the time that Leonardo painted her. And I will put a picture on my website showing where that crack is. It's very difficult to see because you can't get that close to her, as the general public going in. The crack, because it was not sealed correctly, and we'll get into like really scientific specifics, it's actually really interesting. If she goes back and forth with temperature change and humidity, it could crack even more.
That's no bueno.
It's pretty interesting. In 2018, though, the French cultural minister, Françoise Nissan, proposed a traveling exhibition of highlights of the collection of France to fight cultural segregation, saying that this should go around France, including the Mona Lisa. She was the first one. She first mentioned it in March of 2018 on a radio program. It was quickly denounced by the director of the Louvre at the time, Jean-Luc Martinez. Martinez mentioned that the fragile wood painting can't even be moved between floors, much less travel around France. But in 2019, the next year, the Salle des États was redone and painted this beautiful blue color it is now. And so Lisa decided they took her out of there, moved her all the way over to the Richelieu wing on the other side of the museum, and put her in this little makeshift wall, which that's where I got to go see her on closing day. So I got to go. And because she was moved, I could get right next to the glass, which you can't do now. But he's now a very disgraced former director because he was found to have trafficked some antiquities and was arrested. What? And that whole thing is still up in the air. But once a year in July, I think this is the most fascinating thing about her. Once a year in July, she is removed from her coffin and she's inspected. It's always on a Tuesday when the museum is closed, but they also close down the entire wing to all the employees, even the ones working there. You have to have very, very special permission to even get past it, to get even close to it. The National Police are brought in to guard the room in the Salle des États, where she's lifted from the wall, from her frame, and put on an easel. and a dozen very lucky curators and Da Vinci experts from around the world are chosen each year to come to see this. She's taken out of her frame, so she's naked right there, and some of them even have been able to touch her.
Wow, that's cool.
And my friend that works for the Louvre told me that he was asked to bring a gentleman and his daughter in. Martinez had given something for an auction that basically it was like, you bid on this and you get to come in on that day. The current director, Laurence Descartes, which you have met, hates this idea, but they were like, this guy basically gave $1 million to this charity for the chance to do this. They were like, you have to do it. You can't say no. And so my friend was the one who took him in there. And he has done this for the Louvre for 30 years. He's been the VIP guide. He wasn't even allowed in the room with the gentleman and his daughter to see her. And it's like, come on, what's one more person?
Seriously.
So he had to stay outside in the salle d'honneur. And then, but he said that when this gentleman walked out, the look on his face, and he said it was worth every penny of it for the opportunity to see the Mona Lisa, like within an inch.
I mean, wow, though. Like, that's a lot.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. But it's like, come on, my friend, he deserves to see it.
I
But
like your friend. He got to go on some pretty cool tours with some pretty
he is. He's
interesting
a
people.
pretty amazing guy. Maybe we should get him on. Maybe you should get him on an episode of the Wednesday shows.
I would love to have him on Lobby Creative. We should reach out to him.
Yeah, I'll talk to him. I'm going to see him tomorrow. So the reason why I wanted to do this one now is because Mona Lisa has been attacked a few times. Besides the theft, she's been attacked. And that's what just happened 1 week ago again here in Paris at the Louvre. But we'll tell you about the few times it happened before that. In 1956, she had gone down to the Musée Ingres in Montauban, which is where she had gone and hid for part of the time from October 1940 to 1943 in March during the war. While she was on display there, a woman tossed acid at the painting, but luckily she was behind glass. Back at the Louvre at the end of that same year, 1956, a Bolivian homeless man came in. I mean, he wasn't that homeless. He came to France, but he came into the Louvre. His name was Hugo Villiga. He came into the Louvre with a rock in his pocket and decided to throw it at her. It shattered the glass around her, hit her elbow, and actually left a mark that was thankfully restored. But he later admitted he carried out the act because he wanted to be arrested and sent to jail so he could get a warm place to sleep.
Oh my gosh.
The poor guy. On April 20th, 1974, when she was in Tokyo, a woman named Tomoko Unozo was disabled. She came into the Tokyo Museum, and they actually, this is horrible, the museum refused to allow any disabled people to attend the viewing because it was so packed with people that they didn't want to allow any extra space. So rightfully so, she was pretty mad about that. She ended up pushing through the crowd and she spray painted her with red paint. Again, she's behind a frame. Her attack led the Tokyo Museum to create a day that was reserved only for people that had a disability, to be like wheelchairs and anything like that. And actually, a friend of ours that's been on the podcast before, Angela, who is the Egyptologist, she also has a museum dedicated to basically hidden diseases. So, the people that might not be in a wheelchair or have a disability, but have reasons they can't stand up for too long or they're tired. She's actually been interviewed multiple times just about that incident and how it affects museums. And this one attack, it's brought up every time.
Yeah, she's a fascinating woman too. She was great to interview.
Yeah, really interesting. But on her visit in Russia, so, here it is. She goes to New York, she gets wet. She goes to Tokyo, she gets sprayed with paint. She goes to Russia, and a woman threw a bouquet of flowers at her. Not as bad, but still. And also, again, Russia comes into play again. In 2009, on August 2nd, a Russian woman entered the Louvre. She bought a coffee cup at the gift shop, walked into the Mona Lisa, and decided to throw it at her. She lobbed it at the glass. It shattered the mug, but she was upset because she was refused French nationality. I kind of can understand her.
We can feel her pain.
If you've had to deal with the French bureaucracy of immigration, we're right there with you, lady. Big props.
Yeah.
But the most recent one until a week ago, on May 29th, 2022, a 36-year-old man went into the Louvre. He pretended and was dressed as an old lady. He got a wheelchair because with a wheelchair, they will wheel you right up in between the stanchions and the barrier. So you could go right up and see her. But once he got in there, he jumped up, pulled a creamy pastry from underneath his sweater, and he lobbed it at her across the wall. He then reached up above it, kind of smearing it all over the frame, and then he threw roses on it. It was a protest for climate change. But somehow, I'm sure Lisa was happy to finally have a bite of a French pastry after all those times and then be adored with red roses.
That sounds like my love language.
That is, yeah, exactly. Pastries and roses. But the thing is so I was in the Louvre that day when he did that, but I was over in the Richelieu wing. So I was far away from it. But I remember leaving going, why are all these police cars parked up in front of the pyramid? That's kind of odd, just like in Da Vinci Code. But a week ago on January 28th at 10 a.m., two women waltzed into the Salle des Etats and removed a coffee thermos filled with pumpkin soup. They crawled underneath the stanchion, tossed the soup on the painting, and then they started screaming and saying, our agriculture system is sick. What's more important, art or the right to have healthy and sustainable diet? So it wasn't about the climate change this time. It was about food. And it's ironic that they did that in France, where the food is so much better than it is in most other places.
Seriously, they should be throwing that at the National Gallery.
I know. But I do also love, only in France, is it pumpkin soup and it's kept in a coffee thermos. So was it still hot?
These are all valid questions.
Like we're going to throw the pumpkin soup on it, but it's going to be a fancier kind of soup and it's going to be warm still.
Yeah.
So the two women were arrested and they will pay a fine. As for the Mona Lisa, she's kind of seen it all now. The room was closed for an hour. The staff cleaned up the soup off the wall. And by 11:30, the crowd was pushing and shoving their way back in for a selfie. I went in the next day. I went in there just for a visit with my friend, John Baxter. And I popped my head in and I was like, yep, she's back to normal. But you'll notice that none of these attacks happened for the theft. And each of these are basically because they know. So these women that went in there a week ago, they could have taken that. There's the many paintings of all the 35,000 pieces in the Louvre. Many of those paintings don't have glass on them because they're so large and it would just be too heavy. But it's also really expensive to put glass on everything. But those women could go and throw hot soup on other paintings and actually ruin them. But they know that if they do this to the Mona Lisa, it's going to be news around the world. And there's so many of these climate change activists that are going into museums and throwing tomato soup and soup on art and then super gluing their hands to the floor or to the glass. They're not even making the news anymore because it happens so often. But this one, because it was the Mona Lisa, because she's famous around the world, it made the news in every single country around the world that by the next morning.
Yeah, and I guess that was the whole purpose, is just to get, attention.
Yeah. So the Louvre, because when he did steal it, Perugio's lawyer argued at the trial that he said, in the end, nothing was really lost. The Louvre got endless attention from the media around the world. The relationship between France and Italy was better ever since Napoleon. And then the membership of the Louvre went skyrocketed. So he wasn't wrong. And so I actually did some math and figured this out. So 110 years later, 85% of the people, and they found this out in 2019 when they moved her, because when they moved her to the Richelieu wing, they were able to control every single person that scanned a ticket to come in that wanted to see the Mona Lisa. They controlled it from the bottom below the pyramid, up the escalator, into where they scanned the ticket, and then up the other escalator to get to her on the second floor in the Rubens wing. Every single one of those things was controlled. So they were able to figure that 85% of the people every single day that come to the Louvre come to see the Mona Lisa.
Wow.
So just before the summer of 2023, the director, Laurence, had lowered the ticket threshold from 30 to 35,000 a day from 40,000. In a 2019, they were able to control this. So I actually figured out the numbers. So because they were able to track it, and they tracked all of those 85%. So you could say that close to, because of the ticket sales, let's say it's 19,000 people a day come just to see the Mona Lisa of the 35,000. That's a grand total of 323 euros a day at the former price of 17 euros. It's now 22 euros to go. The Louvre is open 311 days a year, which takes it up to 100 million
Wow.
dollars a year that the Louvre makes on people coming in just to see the Mona Lisa. So,
Wow.
in the end, what Perugio did, it actually has been very beneficial to the Louvre. And that's in 110 years. So take $100 million. I mean, the price has definitely changed, but think about how much money they make. And that doesn't even count all of the items that they sell with her image on it.
That's insane.
So the Mona Lisa being stolen has been very beneficial to the Louvre.
I was gonna say that was the best deal they ever got.
That I know. It's like they're probably like, let's see, what else can we like? What other painting that does nobody look at? Let's have somebody steal it.
Seriously.
But isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's incredible. And like it's it's crazy that everyone knows the Mona Lisa in the world. Like even if they don't care about art, they know that name.
They know who she is. Yeah. They said that they just raised the price of the Louvre to 22 euros, but it was at 17 euros for 7 years. And they did that because the cost of everything, to lights and everything. But they say that half of the people a day that come in, of the people that come to the Louvre are free, because there's people like me that have a membership, and there's press passes, and there's people under 18 internationally, or under 20, I think it's 24 26 in Europe.
Yeah,
All
26.
those, none of those people pay, but they're all in that ticket. Like, you have to still, even if you're 6 years old, you have to have a physical ticket, and you do this online, even though you select the free option. But of the 35,000, close to half of that they say are free. But as a member, I'm not even counted in 35,000 at all, because I don't have to have a ticket. I could just stroll in anytime. So there's probably, say there's maybe another 2,000 people a day that don't have to have a ticket at all. So that 35,000 probably gets closer to 38,000 a day.
So wild. I know when my mom and my brother visited recently, we just had such a great time in the Louvre, and it'd been years since I had gone because I was just like, oh, it's annoying. But then kind of going to some different places that I hadn't
Yeah.
seen there yet, I'm like, oh, okay, this actually is enjoyable. And I know we talk about that all the time,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely explore some different parts. I know this was all about the Mona Lisa, but it can still be enjoyable visiting other pieces too.
Yeah, I mean, the area around the Mona Lisa is the worst part of the museum. I mean, it's where everybody is going to go. Like, like I said, 85% of those people are going in there to see her. And so you get all of those at once. But there is, 2/3 of the Louvre is completely empty. And it's only that area around her and those rooms that are the busiest. But I can't wait to take you in there and show you all of that, because you'll get a membership too.
Yep, I'm doing it today. I've decided it's so fun.
They really need to give me a kickback on that, because I have sold so many memberships for them and they could care less.
An affiliate program.
I know. I mean, the amount of money I've made them on my own is probably close to $1 million.
Seriously, they owe you.
Probably not. I don't think so, but I do love it.
Well, guys, we're going to be switching it up next week, so make sure you tune in. And then we'll come back to Mona Lisa. Don't you worry, but we're going to be talking about the Notre Dame bells next week. So make sure you tune in. Check out ClaudineHemingway.com for more information, and we'll see you there. Thanks for listening today, guys. If you're interested in learning more about Claudine, her tours, history, and the beautiful photographs that she posts all over Instagram, tune into her website, ClaudineHemingway.com.